Hello, this is Deacon Larry, and this is Renewed. Last time we spoke, we talked about the Sunday Mass. I'd like to talk about another piece of the Mass today, one that's familiar to all of us, the homily. Oftentimes people may have the question, exactly how does a homily come about? How does Father or the deacon come up with what we're going to say on a particular Sunday? I think it's important to kind of step back and see where the homily fits within the Mass. You know, the Mass is divided into two parts. The liturgy of the Word, in a way, it's very appropriate to talk about the liturgy having two altars. One, the ambo, the pulpit, the place where the readings are proclaimed from, is like the table of the Word. And the altar, where Father consecrates the bread and wine to be the body and blood of Christ, is the altar of sacrifice. Altar of Word, altar of sacrifice. These two altars make up the place of the liturgy of the Word. Well, you'll notice that the liturgy is divided at the point at which we move away from the ambo and begin to prepare the gifts on the altar. It tells you that the homily is indeed a part of the liturgy of the Word. It's a part, actually, of the proclamation of the Word, which means it's really important for the priest or deacon when they're thinking about and preparing a homily that we begin not with our ideas, not with our opinions, not with what I want to talk about today. Before the Second Vatican Council, very often the topic of a homily was simply what was on Father's mind. The reforms of the liturgy in the Second Vatican Council called us back to Scripture. It called us back to the text of the Mass, and they said, from the Old Testament reading, the New Testament reading, the Psalm response, the Gospel, those are the principal texts for us to preach from. But we also in each Mass have the prayers of the liturgy, the collect, that opening prayer that we hear, the preface right before the Eucharistic prayer, that any one of the prayers of the liturgy is a proper subject for our preaching. It's to help us be connected more deeply to what Christ is saying to us through this liturgical setting. Thus, whenever we preach, we begin not with ourselves, but with Christ. The best prayer for us in preparing for a homily, which oftentimes takes a week of preparation, is for us to say, Lord, help us to say your word, not my word, but your word be done. And so, we'll begin in prayer, reading the readings, praying more, being still and listening. As I said, that Mass is a time of recollection. We also recollect and remember our story. Remember the story of the Jewish people, the apostles, Jesus' disciples, Christ's journey in his life. And try to understand, how does that speak to us in our world today? How does it connect? Karl Barth, the great Protestant theologian of the 20th century, said oftentimes we should preach and prepare to preach with the Bible in one hand and the newspaper in the other. Not that the newspaper was going to tell us what Scripture means, but in order for us to use the Scripture to help us understand how to live in the world in which we live today. So the next time you hear a homily, don't think, this is Deacon, this is Father's opinion. Know that we are listening and praying, and we have indeed been ordained and commissioned, ordered to the proclamation of the Word. And that proclamation includes the homily. With that listening, it's our hope that each Sunday, all of us leave in some way greatly influenced, informed, touched, but of all things, renewed.
Please like, subscribe, or comment below.